Hello, PICA fans. My name is Bob and Fishy. Welcome back to the playoffs. So, today we're going to have a match between the Toronto Tyrantrums and the Denver Dashers. Now, the Denver Dashers are going to be coached by Scoria Limit. They took over the coaching duties for this team, what was it, week 4 or something like that? And the Tyrantrums actually going to be coached by RedMat80. They took over the coaching duties week 8, I want to say? No. Probably later than that. Week 9, something like that. Anyway, very late in the season. So, let's go ahead and check these teams out, because these guys actually just fought in the final week of PICA, of the regular season, with the Denver Dashers actually picking up the win. They ended up winning everything with the Crocoon here, which has made a return. Obviously, we don't necessarily know it's a Crocoon looking at the team preview, but he's brought Crocoon to a number of different games. It's obviously one of the best sets. They ended up pretty much bringing it back from the brink. I think it was like 4-1, but Crocoon, if you don't have a solid counter for it, you just lose. So Matt obviously not going to want to let that happen again. Let's go ahead and check out his team. So first off, we've got the Scizor, the Heracross, Clefable, Slowking, Luxray, and Victini. Now, obviously, he's got a very, very, very powerful physical attacking lineup here with Scizor, Heracross, Luxray, and Victini. Now, obviously, Victini can run a couple of different sets. Can run like a physical set, a special set if you want to do that sort of thing. It can run sort of like a mix set. Obviously, base 100 stats across the board. Not really going to lend itself super, super well to just like a straight-up mixed attacker, but it can still do it if it wants to. Can run Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Choice Specs, and as we'll see, a couple of other sets. Next up, we've got this Luxray here. Now, that thing could potentially be running Guts. We see a couple of water types on the Denver Dashers team. Obviously, they can be throwing Scalds around, and as we know, Scald, probably the best move in the game. But if it throws a burn to Luxray, obviously he's going to be able to feed off of that, get that Guts boost, and go for a nice electric attack. Potentially just OHKOing back. Obviously, this is going to be a precautionary measure to try and take care of Crocoon if he happens to run into it. We'll go ahead and skip the core here and go to a couple more physical attackers. We've got Heracross over here. Now, Heracross is another potential Guts user. However, it gets a lot more utility out of its other ability, which is Moxie. Now, obviously, a Moxie Heracross, potentially Scarf, potentially Banded, something like that, is going to be immensely dangerous to the Dashers. It's pretty much immensely dangerous to everything. Now, obviously, a draft format Pokemon thing is not going to be the fastest format. So if it runs Banded Moxie, you could actually potentially see a sweep from that, where you might not necessarily see a sweep from that in standard like UU or OU. I'm not actually sure what tier Heracross is. I think he's UU. But you're going to see in standard play, you're going to see a lot more fast attacking things, so they're going to be able to outspeed Banded. So usually Scarf is the option for there. But with this format, Banded Moxie is also a huge option. And last for the physical attackers is going to be the Scizor. Now, Scizor for Matt's team here could potentially be Mega, but it doesn't have to be. So keep that in mind. You're going to see it could be Banded. It could just be like a Sword Stance regular set. Also, it could potentially be running just like a support set. Something with U-Turn and Defog. And I think it gets access to Roost. So that's actually going to be another really good option for Scizor. So that's a number of really good physical attackers. And let's go ahead and check out the defensive guys. So we're going to see a Slowking here. Obviously, that's going to potentially have Regenerator. That's usually its best option. And Slowking can actually run a number of different sets. Obviously, just straight up specially defensive is a really good option. It could throw Calm Mind around, something like that. Basically, it's got access to a number of really, really good coverage moves, most notably some fire moves like Flamethrower or Fire Blast. So I'm not really sure why it gets those either, but it has them. So keep an eye out for that. And obviously, Psyshock going to be really good. Just having that stab move that hits on the opposite side of the coin, so it can kind of win those Calm Mind battles if it happens to be running Calm Mind against this Crocoon here. And last up, Clefable. Now, Clefable is another thing that could potentially be running multiple abilities. It's got access to, what is it, Unaware, something like that. which just negates the stat boost on its opponent's Pokemon. Or it could potentially just be running like a Magic Guard and just avoid any sort of residual damage, that sort of thing. Both of those are actually decent options, so you could potentially see either. Now let's go ahead and check out the Dashers team. Scoria Limit's going to be coaching these guys, and he's a veteran battler, so we're going to see kind of a weird team. It's not super balanced, but at the same time it kind of is. So he's got two really good physical walls over here. He's got the Tangrowth, obviously another potential Regenerator user, and as we know, Regenerator is a fantastic ability. Could potentially be throwing some Leech Seeds, some knockoffs, some Power Whips. Could throw some, I think it has access to Sleep Powder. That's a really good option. Basically, it's got a couple of different options. Then we've got the Regirock here. Completely different set of resistances. Obviously, Rock not going to have a ton of resistances. But it does have different ones. So that could be, kind of an issue. Obviously, bringing that as a precaution just in case Victini happens to show up. And it did, so keep that in mind. Obviously, Regirock is going to be able to throw some nice Stealth Rocks around, and they're going to be decent against this team. Obviously, Victini's not going to want to switch into Stealth Rocks too frequently. Heracross doesn't like them. He can deal with them. Same with Scizor. Now, Clefable, if it is Magic Guard, not going to take anything. Slowking, not really going to be too worried about it, thanks to that Regenerator. But Luxray, he does not resist them, and, if he's got Guts and he gets Status, that's not going to be the best option for him just because he's going to be taking a lot of residual damage. So keep that in mind. That's something that he's going to have to worry about. Next up, we got Klefki. Now, Klefki can potentially be throwing some spikes around. He's got a lot of really good support moves. Thunder Wave, obviously going to be good against any sort of fast guy. Victini, Heracross, those are going to be kind of the best options. Now, we've seen Red Mat 80 not have the best luck against Paralysis, so keep that in mind. Of course, Klefki has a number of other just interesting moves that he could potentially throw, and obviously access to Foul Play. Now, Foul Play obviously not going to be Stab, but with the number of physical attackers on Red Mat 80's team, that could actually become an issue. And of course, it does have Steel Stab, so if it decides to run any sort of offense, Clefable not really going to want to deal with that, although it does have access to fire moves, so keep that in mind. Next up, we've got the Lopunny here. Obviously going to be a Mega Lopunny. Very fast, very pretty good attacking Pokemon. However, Lopunny, even though it is a very good, a very good fast Pokemon, does not have, overpowering physical attack. So going to have to kind of watch out for that. Maybe the damage output not going to be exactly where it wants it. And of course, we've got some priority in the form of Scizor. We have a potential Scarfer in the form of Heracross who's going to be able to threaten that thing out. So yeah, keep that in the back of your head. Next up, Suicune. Obviously, potentially Crocoon. Obviously, that would be immensely threatening. However, Matt probably not going to want to let that happen again. That's why he's got the Luxray. He's got, a couple of different things that can have Guts. He's got, well, we'll find out. He's got his bases covered in that regard. And last up, we've got the Keldeo. Now, obviously, I'm not a big fan of Keldeo, but it is a very potent attacking Pokemon. Now, Slowking, obviously, going to kind of be able to deal with that. However, if Red Mat 80 slips and lets his Slowking die, Clefable's really going to be his only option against that, and it's really not going to want to be taking Scalds. I know it can, but it really doesn't want to. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that Keldeo. It could potentially be game-winning. So, without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop right into the battle here and see what's going on. So, obviously, we got Denver Dashers down here. He's going to be leading off with the Keldeo, and Matt going to be leading off with his Victini. Obviously not where you want your Victini. Keldeo is faster. So he's going to go ahead and switch out. And in comes the Slowking. Obviously, that's going to be the best move. Slowking not really going to be having anything that Keldeo is selling. With that special defense, with that Regenerator ability, and with a stab move, potentially Psychic or Psyshock, they can just scare him out. So, Keldeo's going to get out of dodge. In comes the Tangrowth. Now, you got to watch out for this, though, because Slowking does have access to fire moves. So, we're going to see Tangrowth take some damage with that Psyshock. Actually, that was a lot of damage. So, we see potentially Slowking offensive, something like that. So Tangrowth's going to miss his Sleep Powder, which is hugely unfortunate because he's going to take a Fire Blast right to the face, and that's going to be it for Tangrowth, which is not exactly how he was going to want to start that. So, Suicune's going to come in against the Slowking here and potentially try and get up a couple of Calm Minds and, just try to Crocune sweep early. Now, we've seen a couple of early sweeps in the PICA tournament before, so something you got to watch out for here. Slowking, going to throw a Psyshock, does 29% with a crit. That's, pretty good damage, actually. Like I was saying, this Slowking is probably going to be offensive here. And here we see the Psych Up. Yeah, get wrecked, Suicune. Psych Up on Slowking is going to allow him to copy those Calm Minds, and that's really going to be able to just kind of beat Suicune one-on-one. Obviously, Psyshock is going to be hitting the physical defense, so Suicune is not going to be able to win this battle. I think it switches out here. Yeah, we see the switch. Unfortunately for the Dashers, they don't really have a good switch in here. Klefki's going to come in, and it's not going to take a ton of damage from that Psyshock, but it does. It's going to be vulnerable to the Fire Blast. So if a Fire Blast hits this thing here, it's going to really just wreck it. So we see the Thunder Wave here, and the Yellow Magic works on Red Mat 80. Paralysis, fully paralyzed. It's not going to go anywhere. Unfortunately for Slowking, he's not going to be able to one-shot that Klefki like he would want to. And in comes the Lopunny. Now, Lopunny is going to try to potentially... I'm not really sure what it's going to do here. Potentially just go for like a nice Encore or something like that. It's got access to a couple of different support moves, so you never know. So, Victini's actually going to come in against this Lopunny. Now, keep in mind, Victini is a Psychic type, so it's not going to take a ton of damage from any sort of fighting moves. But we see the return only does 31%. We see the leftovers on Victini. And actually, right here, we're going to see a Will-O-Wisp. This is a defensive Victini. It's actually a pretty good counter for the Mega Lopunny. Yeah, defensive Victini is actually going to pretty much stop the Dashers in their tracks here. Now, obviously, they do have the 2 water types, but with Energy Ball on this Victini, with Will-O-Wisp, he's not really going to be able to do a ton. You see Regirock just wants to get up those rocks. Not really going to be worried about the Victini. However, it might have been misinformed to go for the rocks there instead of just trying to kill this thing. Because actually, Victini's going to end up causing a lot of problems for this team in the long run. So we see the Regirock goes for the Rest, and it has the Chesto Berry. Unfortunately for it, it means it's going to be vulnerable to that Will-O-Wisp again. So there's pros and cons to everything. But if it had been a Rest Talk set, it would have been able to dodge the Wisp and potentially get a Stone Edge or something. Now here we see the Thunder Wave from Regirock. Going to be slowing down Victini, but of course Red Mat, he does have a potential Heal Bell user in this Clefable. Now we see Clefable come in and take Stealth Rock's damage. This thing is an unaware Clefable. And what does that mean? Well, it means that he was really stacking things to deal with Crocune. Burn's obviously going to be taking its toll on Regirock. Clefable is probably going to be getting up some sort of support move here. He goes for the Fire Blast, actually. Maybe he was predicting Klefki to come in. Not really sure what he was going for there, but Suicune ends up coming in. Now, we did see the rocks damage, so I think this is misinformed for the Dashers here. They're going into their Crocune. Maybe he was just trying to get the rest up or something, but he's actually not really going to be able to do anything to Clefable with that unaware ability. So Clefable's actually going to start setting up some Calm Minds of its own, and that's pretty much his cue to get out of there, because you're not going to be able to beat a Calm Mind Clefable with especially offensive Pokemon, even if you do get some boost up. Unaware is just going to negate them. So Lopunny's going to come in, go for the Encore, and he was actually very lucky that Clefable got fully paralyzed there on the switch, because if he had gone for like a Moonblast or something, that would have just KO'd. So Lopunny's going to be able to force the Victini to come back in. Going to go for the return again. Obviously not going to do a ton of damage. However, keep in mind that the Victini is paralyzed, so if he does get fully paralyzed again, 2 more returns will kill. But obviously the Dashers don't want to risk that, because they don't want to risk what has been their best Pokemon in the Lopunny. So Suicune's going to come on back in, take a bit of damage from that Energy Ball. Obviously not going to be a ton, but he is getting those leftovers back, so that's a really good option for Red Mat. And, any damage on anything is always good. So even though Suicune does have the rest is not super reliable in terms of just like general recovery, because you do have to rely on Sleep Talk for 2 turns. So not really sure why he didn't go for the Sleep Talk here, but he doesn't, and so Luxray can switch in almost for free. He does take the rock damage, but yeah, that's not really an issue. So Regirock's going to come in, obviously not going to take anything from that Wild Charge. Regirock does have that insane base 200 physical defense. So, but the burn is actually going to be doing enough damage to make Regirock, like, not really comfortable being in here. Now, Scizor is pretty much a perfect switch-in for this thing. It's going to be able to threaten it out with the Bullet Punch. Not really going to take any sort of damage from that Stone Edge because of the burn. Now, a crit would have hurt, but Scizor, if it is defensive or, any sort of support set, going to be carrying that, Roost. And we go ahead and I think we see do we see Defog here? I think we do. Let's find out. Yeah, there's the Defog. So, get rid of those rocks. That's going to be really good for a couple of different things. Obviously, Clefable is paralyzed. It's not going to want to switch in a ton against that. And obviously Victini, saving it, 25% of its health every time it switches in. That's always going to be nice. So, your defensive Victini is going to be able to keep those defenses up. Now, we see the Sleep Talk Calm Mind from Suicune here. And that's going to mean that it is at +1. However, that's actually kind of baiting in the Slowking here. To just come in and get up a Psych Up. And we see Luxray is in here, gets burned, and obviously that's going to be a Guts, between Guts, Burn, and that critical hit there. Going to take Suicune almost down to no health. Now, obviously, 2 regular hits would have, killed Suicune as well, just because crits only do 1.5 times this gen, which I always have to remind myself. But anyways, so we see the Wild Charge here does twice as much as it, or not twice as much, 1.5 times as much as it did last time to this Regirock, and that Burn's actually going to finish it off. Now keep in mind, Luxray is not, in the ideal position. Ideally, it would have been able to come in on Suicune a couple more times, but now if it switches in and it gets hit with a Scald, it will be over for it because of that Burn. So, not ideal, but at the same time, it's still not bad. So Lopunny's going to go for the power-up punch here, but keep in mind there is an unaware Clefable lurking in the background here, and here it comes. Obviously, Clefable, not going to care about your power-up punches. You can power up all you want, doesn't matter. I don't see your status boost, basically. So as long as Clefable's able to actually do something, if it doesn't get fully paralyzed here, it's going to pretty much do a lot of damage to this Lopunny. We see the Moonblast does 88%. The Dashers are really, they're kind of in shambles at the moment. They really need some sort of break. Lopunny goes for the Healing Wish. Now, that's a really interesting move here. I can't really think of anything I'd want to, heal a lot. Now, obviously, healing something's never bad, but at the cost of your Lopunny, I know it was only at, 12% or something, but still, he's going to pretty much be your thing to outspeed stuff. Although, I guess Scizor would have just been able to KO it with the Bullet Punch. Anyway, Suicune gets healed back up to full. Unfortunately, Clefable, having none of your shenanigans, he's going to be able to Calm Mind just as much as Suicune and benefit more from it. So, Suicune just looking for a crit here, trying to do some damage to Clefable. But Clefable is just going to start setting up, and Suicune cannot keep up with that. So we're probably going to see a switch here. Let's find out. I don't actually remember this game move for move. It is a very long game. Obviously, the Dasher is not going to want to go down without a fight, but they are down 3 Pokemon against 6. So we see +2 from the Clefable here. Now Klefki comes in, and everybody's wondering, what are we going to see from this Klefki? And it goes for a Psych Up. So both of these guys had the same idea, Psych Up on their guys. Unfortunately, we see unaware Clefable does not care about your defense boosts. Going to KO with the Fire Blast. Yeah. So, as we see here, RedMat80 says, it's the thought that counts. Yeah, there's really not a lot he's going to be able to do. It is kind of funny that both of these guys had the same idea, but at the end of the day, implementation, I think, Matt just had better guys to implement that idea. Now, of course, Klefki, against anybody else, that prankster Psych Up would have just been able to steal all their boosts before they can even do anything. That would have been really interesting. unfortunately for the Dashers, Suicune's going to be the last guy. Against this Clefable, it's not going to do any damage. So, unless he gets a couple of crits in a row, not really going to be able to do anything. Even if he does, that Slowking's waiting in the wings, going to be able to beat him one-on-one. And, you know, also that Luxray, if this Suicune gets below, like, say, you know, half health or so, going to get knocked out by that wild charge. Probably will cost Luxray his life, but at the same time, definitely worth it if you're Red Matt. You know, you're going to win straight up. So, at this point, it's pretty much just a game of not getting fully paralyzed for Clefable. You'll see Suicune just trying to throw some damage at it. Like, maybe this thing will get fully paralyzed a few times in a row, but it's not going to happen. And we see the special attack drop from the Moonblast there. And again, that's not going to matter because of the unaware, but at the same time, it's a little bit of salt in the wound. Obviously, the Dasher's not going to want to go down without a fight. They're going to rest. Yeah. Stuff happens, you know. Now, Clefable still in here, still getting those lefties. This is game. I'm just gonna keep talking until it's over. But we're gonna see actually Red Knight 80 next round. He's gonna be fighting against Robotnik is Sexy, who yeah, he's been on a bit of a tear towards the end of the season here. They're gonna be fighting to see who goes to the finals. That's gonna be a super cool match. So feel free to subscribe to the PICA channel here. We're gonna keep you updated. Well, actually, I don't want to spoil anything, but we already know how the battle ends. But you keep informed. There will be a season 3. Keep that in mind. So obviously you're gonna want to keep an eye on the channel here, and just get all your updates. Obviously PICA has been super fun. Just seeing all these different personalities, all these different strategies. It's just a really interesting way to do Pokemon. So here we actually do see a crit here. Knocking the Clefable down to 29%. Unfortunately for Scory Limit and the Dashers, not going to see another one. And, yeah, it's going to be game. So, guys, hope you have enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time for the next round of the playoffs. My name is Bob and Fishy, and, yeah, have a fantabulous day.